There is nothing wrong with your radio.
Do not attempt to adjust the volume.
We are controlling the broadcast.
For the next hour we will control all that you hear.
You are about to experience the knowledge and insights of the Media Mothership.
Yes! You're listening to Media Mothership. Now we're back. Yeah, I've kind of got everything almost set up here in the studio. This is Media Mothership. As always, we explore how media can shape our understanding of the world around. We're streaming on edgeradio.org.au as well as YouTube and Twitch. You can find us on YouTube and Twitch. Just search for Media Mothership. See us in the flesh on the video. And during the show, if you have any thoughts of your own, feel free to send us a message on the chat, YouTube or Twitch chat, or you can SMS us directly in the studio on 0488811707. So, as I mentioned, we're going to be exploring the idea of writing villains, writing evil, villainous characters, seeing how those villainous characters from movies and television can be crafted so well. I've been enjoying the final episodes of the Star Wars series Andor, and really relishing the juxtaposition that TV series has between the evil characters from the Empire and the kind of morally ambiguous, I guess, at times, good characters. And there's quite a lot of kind of comparison between the two characters, or the various characters in the show that has got me thinking about villains, how best to portray and set up villains. So we're going to start with
Then the sirens get louder?
Discussion from Film Courage, the Film Courage YouTube site. It's an interesting YouTube site, goes over various tips and advice for film writing and creating films, as well as if you're enjoying films, some of the analysis of, in this case, a guide to writing evil characters. We'll listen to the first setup for it, and then we'll deep dive into some characters I think present similar motifs of effective evil characters and not. So we'll hear the intro. The intro sets up this really interesting character, which we may or may not consider at the point at which we're meeting them as evil. The character of Walter White from Breaking Bad. So let's first hear this introduction to, I think this is the first episode of Breaking Bad, where Walter White's character is, again, at the precipice of becoming an evil character.
Walter takes a gun from his underwear, steps up to the road, points the pistol right at the road, and stands there while the siren gets loud. Boom! End of cold open. That's a great cliffhanger, and it's a ticking clock, and it doesn't get resolved, and we go to the credits.
There's a wonderful speech in Apocalypse Now, which is based on Heart of Darkness, Joseph Conrad's novel. And when Martin Sheen is getting his mission to go kill Marlon Brando, Colonel Kurtz, the general who's giving him the mission says the theme of the story, which is, there is a conflict in every human heart between the light and the dark, between good and evil. And the light does not always win. Sometimes the darkness overcomes what Lincoln called the better angels of our nature. Every man has got a breaking point.
So that was the scriptwriter Pamela J. Smith talking about a scene from the Francis Ford Coppola war movie Apocalypse Now, set during the Vietnam War, and the really fascinating character of or portraying Kurtz. So this is in Act 1 of Apocalypse Now, as our protagonist, Captain Willard, played by Martin Sheen, is being sat down by his kind of CIA minders, and his character describing to him this descent of a previously considered heroic character, played by Marlon Brando, who seems to have become evil. Let's actually listen to that scene from the movie to set in this idea of, again, how to write a villain character, an evil character. And the idea here that Pamela J. Smith's presenting is that you want to be able to have a breaking point where this character, or one way of developing the villain character is the breaking point moment, where the character is broken and becomes evil. Literally, in the scene we just heard there described was Walter White from Breaking Bad. Literally, the breaking point for a character to break bad. So here we'll hear from Apocalypse Now that Breaking Bad moment.
Between good and evil. And good does not always triumph. Sometimes the dark side overcomes what Lincoln called the better angels of our nature. Every man has got a breaking point. You and I have. Oh, Lord.
Interestingly, this idea of breaking point, if you search on YouTube for movies with breaking point moments, a movie that comes up quite a bit is The Shawshank Redemption. And again, a character refers to breaking point within Shawshank Redemption. So the scene we'll hear from now is kind of in the third act of the film, where a character's using this phrase, every man has his breaking point. So in The Shawshank Redemption, the scene we're going to see here is this moment where an individual, even the strongest individual, will reach this moment of despair or hopelessness. Right, so in Apocalypse Now, for Colonel Kurtz's character, the idea they're trying to get their heads around is clearly this character has arrived at this breaking point moment, and despair, hopelessness has driven them over the edge. In this case, in Shawshank Redemption, it's interesting what that sets up. You know, it's not setting up a villain turn, a heel turn, if we're to use the wrestling parlance. It's not a moment that's breaking the character of Andy. But nevertheless, we'll hear how this scene gets conveyed with the breaking point moment.
Oh, Lord. What?
Andy come down to the loading dock today. He asked me for a length of rope.
Rope?
6 feet long.
And you gave it to him.
Sure I did. Why wouldn't I?
Jesus, Haywood.
How was I supposed to know?
Remember Brooks Hamlin?
No. And he'd never do that.
Every man has his breaking point.
Man missing on tier 2, cell 245. Dufresne, get your ass out here, boy. You're holding up the show. Don't make me come down there. I'll thump your skull for you. Damn it, Dufresne, you're putting me behind. I got a schedule to keep. You better be sick or dead in there, I shit you not. You hear me?
Oh, my holy God.
Michael Corleone's...
So it's an interesting moment there, as we can hear from that scene in the third act, where Red and the other inmates are beginning to fear that Andy may have lost hope. And that moment that Morgan Freeman's character, Red's referring to, the breaking point moment, is that, you know, has Andy lost hope? Instead, actually, here, that breaking point dialogue is a misdirection to the audience, whereas rather than a moment of kind of turning to hopelessness and despair, It's actually overcoming the resilience of the character after that scene. As we just heard a little bit of a teaser there, if we think about that idea, though, and jumping back to the writing guide of breaking point moments, it's interesting to consider those moments where a character does have the character arc is about exploring a breaking point. So one of the best examples of this would be The Godfather and the character of Michael Corleone, who begins the film initially as a hero, literally as World War II soldier, considered heroic in that first act. He's on a pathway to marry. He's not part of his family business, which turns out to be part of the mafia, and he doesn't want anything to do with that criminal empire. And during the course of the movie, it's fascinating to see as he reaches a breaking point, as he breaks bad, he becomes an evil character, or at least a morally compromised character by the end. And this transformation, I guess, from a heroic character into a ruthless mafia boss represents for many people a fantastic Breaking Bad exploration. Let's listen to a couple of clips. What I've created here are some really interesting clips from a series of YouTube shorts where various YouTube movie analysis channels have created short little 10, 20-second clips of character exploration. The reason why I'm doing these YouTube shorts, and they're very AI-based in terms of, you can hear that distinctly AI voice that's coming in, is that I think it's really setting up, the dominant way of reading these characters. If we understand audience meaning making through Stuart Hall's reception theory, you can see it having three aspects. One, the kind of dominant reading, which is the reading, the mainstream reading, the reading that the director intended you to get, is the reading that the audience is kind of matching up to. So a lot of these YouTube shorts are pretty much going to be the dominant reading. A lot of AI searches you do will give you, more often than not, a dominant reading in terms of they'll be looking for something, particularly if the search is not asking for a resistant or oppositional reading. It'll just give you what it's been able to dredge through from mainstream sources, often trying to avoid a kind of overt controversial position. It'll take a neutral tone, often the AI search. So these little AI clips I'll play from various YouTube channels exploring character identification are fascinating because of their way to set up a dominant reading of the Breaking Bad idea for character development. There is, of course, as Stuart Hall argues, always negotiated and oppositional readings that audiences can play around with. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not those Breaking Bad ideas that some of these channels suggest are at the core of those characters are not there at all. Or maybe there's a negotiated reading partially in that camp, but also saying this character also is sympathetic in terms of, the Michael Corleone character is a great one in terms of, yes, while you could say he breaks bad to become an evil mafia kingpin, you could also say, there's a lot of family loyalty and survival, the ability to survive there, which is a kind of negotiated reading of that character. He's not completely morally bankrupt and evil. He has good aspects, a survival instinct, a strong loyalty to family, or an oppositional reading. But let's listen to this Michael Corleone Transformation Part 1 YouTube short from the channel Character Chronicles.
Reluctance to join the family business reveals his inner conflict. See the moment he questions his path.
Well, when Johnny was first starting out, he was signed to this personal service contract. Now, Johnny is my father's godson. And my father went to see this band leader, and he offered him $10,000 to let Johnny go. But the band leader said no. The next day, my father went to see him, only this time with Luca Brasi. And within an hour, he signed a release for a certified check of $1,000.
How'd he do that?
Luca Brazzi held a gun to his head, and my father assured him that either his brains or his signature would be on the contract. That's my family, Kay. It's not me.
Want to see?
That's my family, Kay, not me. Again, Act 1, heroic character of Michael Corleone, played by Al Pacino. The idea that he's actually a heroic character, not Breaking Bad. That's his family. His family's mafia, right? They'll send a heavy in to threaten the death of this poor guy so that they get what they want. So instead, here we have this moment of the character transitioning into something else. So let's have a look. Another YouTube short from the Cinema Craft. Here, again, unpacking those pivotal scenes which made Michael Corleone break bad.
These moments showcase Michael's transformation from reluctant outsider to ruthless mafia leader, shaping the film's tragic arc. Michael introduces Kay to his family, but insists he's different.
That's my family, Kay. It's not me.
Distancing himself from the mob life. When his father is nearly killed,
I'm with you now.
Michael realizes the family's vulnerability, starting his pull into the business. Michael kills Salozzo and McCluskey, making his first violent move and committing to the family's way. In hiding, Michael marries Apollonia. But her murder hardens him and pushes him further into the criminal world. Vito's passing cements. Michael is the head of the Corleone family, stepping into his father's shoes.
Make him an offer he can't refuse.
Michael orders the elimination of all rivals during his godson's baptism, sealing his fate as the ruthless Godfather.
I do renounce them.
So here's a TV.
So there's a number of steps there that example of the pivotal scenes that made Michael Corleone evil, or the mafia king, around that idea of a breaking point. And the first one, the death of his father, and his sense of being brought into the family through killing the corrupt police officer, is that first kind of breaking point idea of his gradually getting pulled into the mafia, so that, as we heard in those other clips, he's making offers that the other character can't refuse. Let's get back to film Courage now and hear some other tips on how to write an evil
Then the sirens
character.
get louder. Walter takes a
Red's novel of our.
This came from Cliff Osmond, was my acting coach, and he said he had never seen a decent portrayal of Hitler because the person so vilified by society that no actor had ever played him from a true place. He was always a villain. And he said, you know who didn't think Hitler was a villain? Hitler. Hitler didn't think he was a villain at all. Hitler thought he was doing amazing things for this race of people. And he said, because of that, you don't get a real, honest portrayal. He said, you cannot judge your character. In fact, you have to think of yourself as your character's attorney.
Oh, wow.
You have to plead your case, or the case of the character, to the audience. You can't do that if you're judging the character. And I took that with acting, and I also took that into my writing as well. You know, everybody is coming from a place where they think they're doing the right thing.
Right.
You know? So I think that's really important, actually, when you're developing characters. Because the minute you judge a character, you've got a two-dimensional character. You know, you've got a flat, it's like, oh, okay, I know this guy's story. He's the bad guy, or he's the good guy, whatever it is.
Even good characters do bad things. And
right.
think they're justified for.
And that's the thing. It's the complexity of life. You know, no one's all bad or all good.
In order to create a
All right, so we'll pick up some ideas there by the actor and scriptwriter Marcus Redman, particularly his point of when you're writing a villain, think of yourself as a character's attorney, which is a really fascinating way to avoid that mistake of just doing a two-dimensional cardboard cutout villain and instead recognize, as Marcus Redman says, there's no good versions of Hitler because everyone sees him as a two-dimensional character rather than not. Let's have a look at the idea of Walter White and the change he goes through.
So here's a TV character moment that I think was just brilliant writing. When Walter White gets diagnosed with cancer, he worries over financing his treatment and supporting his family. But when a wealthy friend, having heard the news, offers him a good job, seemingly serving on a plate the save he so desperately needs, Walt just stares back at him, insulted by the very idea that he'd need someone's help. So Walt dives into a life of crime, becoming a multimillionaire on a foundation of sin to prove that he is capable. Until years later, his enemies catch him, beat him, rob him, and leave him for nothing. So, defeated, Walt calls to turn himself in, until he turns on the TV and sees that same friend giving an interview, talking about how little he regards Walter White. And suddenly, despite a lifetime having passed, the grizzled Walt is pulled back to that moment, seething at the idea of being looked down on. So he gets up, evades the troopers, and sets out to correct him. And with just that moment, the show makes overwhelmingly clear that after 5 seasons of triumphs and losses that could have helped anyone grow, Walter White remains now, as he has been from the beginning, an impressively intelligent man with the fragile ego of a child.
The explosion kills Rachel, which...
That was the example of Walter White there. Again, a great character in terms of breaking point character, where his breaking point, as that argument from the Reliable Narrator channel argues, that actually Walter White's character is breaks bad because his ego is so fragile that he cannot allow his ego not to be seen as brilliant, which means throughout. And it's an interesting Breaking Bad. Have you seen Breaking Bad?
I haven't seen anything to do with Breaking Bad.
Well, there's a great moment in this series, right? Character's very sympathetic at the start, of course. The character Walter White, diagnosed with cancer, decides that all of his earnings are not sufficient to take care of his family, but then through a school student he'd taught, realizes there's a lot of money to be made in drugs.
Yeah.
So he's going to pursue that pathway, but then a rich friend of his who finds out that he's got cancer says, well, why don't you come and work with me? You know, you won't be asked to do too much, but I can provide for you and make sure your family's set up. And his sense of crushed ego just by getting a handout was so significant that that's one breaking point he reaches, right? Where he decides, no, screw you. Don't need your handout. I'm better than you.
I want to make illegal drugs.
I'm going to make it, And then throughout, as this channel's saying, it's not a kind of one breaking point and then becomes evil. It's a series of breaking points through which he makes morally ambiguous bad behaviors. My co-host Taylor's joined.
Hey.
So now one of the other things, and while you're here, actually, we may as well jump into one of the other parts, which is good characters sometimes make bad decisions, right? So there's a number of points where Marcus Redman, the scriptwriter there, is talking about moments where you want to write complicated characters, you want to advocate for your character and be their attorney. And there are moments also where good characters do bad things, right? It's not black and white. You don't want to do just a black and white character. I got a YouTube short here from the Harry Potter Central, because I know these are series films you have seen.
I know
and characters
this.
you do know. Yeah. Okay, so this is 5 of the worst things done by good characters.
In Harry Potter.
In Harry Potter.
Okay.
So what we'll do is we'll listen to some of these and we'll discuss whether indeed these are kind of breaking point moments, right?
Dumbledore should be number one.
These are moments where
he raised Harry Potter like a pig for slaughter.
5 of the worst things done by good characters. Number 1, Ginny ended up opening up the Chamber of Secrets by complete accident, and Tom used her for her whole first year at Hogwarts.
Ginny opened up
the Chamber of Secrets.
The Chamber of Secrets. What was her motivation for doing that?
She was being possessed. That's not really a motivation.
So her character
did
a bad
something
thing.
bad.
Did a bad thing.
She wasn't in control of it.
Right. So that's pretty excusable.
Apart from the fact of that she was talking to Tom Riddle in a book and shouldn't have been doing that.
And there were weaknesses in her character, right? So there were flaws. There was like loneliness or craving male attention.
Yeah.
That then caused her to make a bad decision.
Yeah.
It wasn't a Breaking Bad point, right? She didn't become an evil character after that.
I really do like the sort of like the undertones of Ginny's talking to the book though, because it's talking in terms of like it's an obvious connection between spilling your secrets onto the internet. That's why I really like it.
Yep,
yeah.
A strong metaphor of that.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, well, let's listen to number 2 of the, worst things a good character does.
Okay.
From Harry Potter.
Number 2, Dumbledore's love for Grindelwald wasn't the bad decision, but that doesn't change the fact that Grindelwald ended up being who he was. Number 3,
all right, hold on.
Well, I couldn't get my brain around that. What was it?
Grindelwald. So, what's the character? What's the connection between Grindelwald and Dumbledore? This is Fantastic Beasts, right?
I will be honest. I haven't really paid attention to Fantastic Beasts,
Right,
and I haven't even
skip
seen
it.
the last
Skip
one
it.
of Fantastic Beasts because I didn't like the first two
Number
so much.
He was. Number 3, all of Dobby's attempts at saving Harry Potter in Chamber of Secrets were all actually pretty bad decisions, including jinxing the bludger. Number 4,
Who's Darby? Who's Darby?
Dobby, obviously, the one and only, my favorite character from the whole series.
Really?
He's like Jar Jar Binks, right?
Oh, yeah, true.
He's like, and Jar Jar Binks is an interesting Breaking Bad character because Jar Jar Binks' character was so irredeemable in terms of, a kind of childish character that kind of devalued the entirety of the Phantom Menace series. That fans then said this character would be much more interesting if, in fact,
he was a Darth.
A Sith character. Right, so that he broke bad. So many fans say that Jar Jar Binks was the ultimate puppet master Sith character that was Breaking Bad throughout it. Dobby, does Dobby make bad decisions?
Oh, absolutely.
And are those breaking point decisions? Right, those are bad decisions, which cause
them to go to the dark side.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. But what his decisions do have ramifications. He does die, thank goodness. Spoiler alert.
Something they never managed to do with Jar Jar Binks.
No. But again, good characters can do bad things, but in this case, Dobby's bad things were all, And how would you characterize the bad things?
It was still because he had to hide it from the Malfoy family who owned him, right?
Yeah.
And so he had to do it in these sort of surreptitious, sort of dangerous ways instead of actually coming out and going fixed. Sorry. Fixed.
Hagrid. All right. Hagrid's let's see what the bad.
I hate Hagrid.
Hagrid having Harry and Ron find Aragog might have helped clear his name with them, but they almost ended up getting eaten in the process.
True.
Aragog. So what's the story with Aragog again?
Follow the spiders. Is
that the big dog?
No, that's Fang.
Okay, right.
It's follow the spiders into the Forbidden Forest. Not the Black Forest, that's in Germany. Into the Forbidden Forest. And at the end, there's a massive spider who tries to feed them to the family.
Good characters do bad things. In this case, Hagrid, who is, kind of a mentor, a kind of custodian to the boys, right? He's the first wizarding character that Harry meets, really. And he very much means well. what was his screw up here? What was the bad thing?
Well, because he was just about to go to Azkaban, right? And so he needed people to basically know that it wasn't him who had the creature that was killing everyone, i.e. the basilisk. And so he sent Harry and Ron into the forest to meet almost certain peril.
Two young, kind of
15-year-olds,
first year, 50-year-old school student.
Oh no, 12-year-olds.
Wow, yeah, into a known dangerous place. Yeah. And there were no repercussions. Did he lose his job? He lost his.
Not really.
No. Okay. Last one, number 5.
Number 5. Harry almost ended up killing Draco Malfoy with Sectum Sempra, and luckily, Snape was there to reverse the effects.
All right, so Harry's bad decisions, right?
He's reading the Half-Blood Prince's potion book, and scribbled into the side pages is an unknown spell, and it says for enemies, and so he just decides to use it on Draco Malfoy, his enemy, and almost kills him.
And that the only reason Malfoy lived was because Snape was there to
reverse the effects, because he invented that spell.
Really? Mind blown. So again, potentially, yes, that could have been a breaking point for Harry, right? Actually killing someone. And many people point out that's a moment where a hero often does turn to a more morally complicated or compromised character.
I mean, that's another thing with the Half-Blood Prince. Like, if you watch the movie, you have Snape there going, and he goes, "I am the Half-Blood Prince," and it's like, yeah, sure, what? So what? how are you the Half-Blood Prince? And gets rid of all of this entire backstory. The backstory is he's a half-blood, and his Muggle mother, her last name was Prince, and so therefore he was a half-blood prince.
Because I mean, Snape's character is interesting in terms of a villain, right? I mean, he very much comes across as the villain. What was the breaking point for Snape? Right, it was his love triangle, wasn't it, between Harry's parents?
But that's
and
the
Snape?
point. Snape was never bad.
Wow, so the reveal comes, but nevertheless, the reason why he's not.
Snape started off as a bad character, and the breaking point to him turning good was the love triangle with his mother.
Right,
not with his mother, with Harry's mother.
With Harry's mother, yeah. So in ways, yes, Snape broke good because he's from a Slytherin family and everything, right?
Yeah.
His character's meant to be evil.
Yeah.
Right. So, so that's a really interesting counterpoint that he breaks good. All right, next one we're going to listen to. So going back to that initial idea of moments in where a movie character breaks, it reaches a breaking point. Let's listen now to Harvey Dent, Dark Knight, DC comic books, the villain character.
Two-Face.
Two-Face, there we go. So in Dark Knight, second movie by Christopher Nolan. Oof, I was going to say Christopher Columbus. Christopher Nolan introduces Harvey Dent, very much sets him up as the White Knight. Right, he's an idealistic district attorney, but then he's broken. Okay, so what breaks this idealistic district attorney? Let's listen to WIOR channel for Harvey Dent's transformation.
Did you know in The Dark Knight, Harvey Dent's transformation into Two-Face after being severely burned on one side of his face mirrors real-life cases of individuals undergoing significant physical and psychological changes due to traumatic events? This powerful scene demonstrates how trauma can profoundly alter a person's identity and moral compass, making it one of the most compelling and realistic portrayals of character transformation in cinema.
You either die.
All right. Well, that's emotional trauma. The emotional trauma, though, is
the explosion kills Rachel, which leaves Batman devastated since he intended to save her. However, he manages to rescue Harvey before he too is killed in the explosion. But Harvey is left severely disfigured and mentally destroyed by the tragedy.
Did you know in The Dark...
All right, so that's end of Act 2. What happens is the Joker challenges Batman and Commissioner Gordon to save Rachel, who's the love interest of Batman, and Harvey Dent, right? They're in 2 different locations. They've both got bombs that are about to explode. And
Was this in the movie?
Yeah, it was in the movie. And they've got to split up to rescue them. It's a setup for the third act.
Yeah, I do remember that,
Right,
yeah.
so Batman goes to save Rachel, and Commissioner Gordon goes to save Harvey Dent. But the Joker has sprung a surprise, and Batman was actually going to where Harvey Dent is. Right, Batman's successful, saves Harvey Dent, but thought it was Rachel. Commissioner Gordon wasn't successful. Rachel dies.
Rubbish.
Anyway, so it's that trauma where
terrible
where Harvey Dent thinks that, right? It's interesting, again, that idea of real trauma. There's one more clip
You either
on it.
die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
This is the face of Gotham's bright future.
All right, yep. So that's, again, one of these other cliches of becoming the villain. You either die the hero or live long enough to become the villain. Interestingly, I saw that as a meme today where someone posted these frozen meals that were Gordon Ramsay branded. Gordon Ramsay's frozen pasta. Gordon Ramsay's frozen sausages that, you just put in the microwave to eat. It's like, that's that concept.
Yeah.
You either, die early as the hero, or you live long and become the villain. So again, the idea there being, if Harvey Dent had died in that second act explosion, he would have died the hero, right? Everyone would still have remembered him as the heroic district attorney, but then he justifies his sense of revenge by, he hasn't died, but he's now become the villain. Interesting one here is Jack Torrance's character in The Shining. Not seen it?
Not seen it.
Great horror film, all right. It tells the story of the character Jack Torrance. It's a Stephen King novel, based on Stephen King novel. This is a clip from the movie by Stanley Kubrick.
I've seen it.
Great. Well, there's one horror film. We're not talking about it, though. Jack Torrance, played by Jack Nicholson. And it's interesting, this the Art of Narrative YouTube channel is here presenting his theory on the breaking point for Jack Torrance's character. Why do we go from this character that is not crazy to, by Act 2,
crazy?
Yep.
Drove Jack Torrance crazy? I think the answer isn't as clear as you might believe. Any fan of the film could recite a combination of factors that contributed to Jack's madness. The isolation of the Overlook Hotel, located in a remote area that is cut off from the outside world in the bleak white winter, the hotel's dark history of violence, or the ghosts of the former guests and employees who haunt Jack and torment him, bringing out his worst demons, and finally Jack's own alcoholism and mental instability. All of these factors combined created the perfect storm that drove Jack to madness. But these all miss one important clue: Jack's complete inability to write. In the absence of all other distractions, Jack is forced to confront a horrifying truth: his utter lack of talent. And that is
lack of talent, right? So the position that the Art of Narrative is presenting is that it's because Jack Torrance's character has been deceiving himself. He's actually not a good writer. The whole thing is that he's gone to do the winter caretaker for this hotel, so he has time to write his great novel. As we see in the film, though, he's not actually able to write, and he becomes increasingly frustrated by his wife and his child. He turns to alcohol, but the core breaking point concept that this art narrative is presenting is that it's his own self-delusion and self-deceit and craving for success, which has broken him. That he does not understand himself, and he does not understand himself that ultimately he's just not a good writer. He's not capable of it. Let's have a look at Anakin Skywalker, Star Wars.
Yep.
When did Anakin Skywalker fully embrace the dark side?
Some believe it happened when he defied the Jedi Order to save Chancellor Palpatine from Mace Windu. Others think it was his rampage on Mustafar, where he betrayed the wife he once held dear. The logical time was when he slaughtered younglings in the Jedi Temple. Yet we learn in the rise and fall of Darth Vader that Anakin still thought of himself as Anakin when Emperor Palpatine crossed the lava shores of Mustafar to his apprentice's burned body. It wasn't until he was sealed inside his life support suit and the Emperor asked Lord Vader if he could hear him that Darth Vader realized Anakin was gone. It was upon learning that his wife and child were dead at his own hands that Vader lost all hope. His wife was gone forever, leaving him devoid of love. And in that moment, he fully surrendered to the dark side.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a number of moments in the film where the character of Anakin does a number of bad things. Right? Killing the younglings, most people would say, is a moment where he's broken. Right? He's a breaking point.
No, that was valid.
Yeah, well, this is what Star Wars Apprentice is saying. That's not actually the breaking point, because he still sees himself as Anakin, right? Still redeemable, I guess. His argument is it's the moment which not only is he encased in the life support system of the Darth Vader uniform, but he's told by Palpatine that, you know, his wife is dead as well. In fact, let's listen to that scene.
Just help me save Padme's life. I can't live without her.
Where is Padme? Is she safe? Is she all right? Seems in your anger, you killed her. No! I couldn't. She was alive. I felt it.
Oh, all right, yeah. So the idea being that, yeah, it's that moment in which he thinks he's killed his wife. Well, she does die actually after his choke force hold on her. Yeah. So again, you know, so there's some interesting thoughts there around writing evil characters. My takeaway actually is the point that that you've got to think of yourself as your character's attorney, right? You can't just reduce the character to being, I need a bad guy, so he's just irredeemably bad. Make yourself the character's attorney. Understand that every character sees themselves as heroic or the center of the movie, or not kind of non-functional evil, right? They see themselves as justified for the actions they're taking. So that's Media Mothership for this week. Do we have another show after this?
No, but I'm going to run some tests to make sure that what I've got will work. So
fascinating. All right. Wow. Keep listening then to Edge Radio. We've got some great tunes coming in. Think about those ideas of breaking point moments in characters, right? What movies have you seen where there's been a breaking point moment that's caused the character to turn evil? If you've enjoyed this episode of Media Mothership, check out our previous episodes on your podcast provider of choice. We've got a Facebook page, Instagram as well, so feel free to jump on those too. This has been your host, Craig, joined by co-host Taylor for another week.
Bye.
Saying bye. Oh, yeah? Why is that not playing?
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Yeah. And radio.